How's everybody doing this morning? All right, let's make sure we got this clicker working. All right. So I wanted to start off with for just a couple of minutes and just tell you who Woodworks is and who I am and give you a little background. And then we'll talk a little bit about the transformation that's going on in the U.S. and really around the world as it relates to wood frame construction. Really a lot of exciting things going on out there. So first of all, the group Woodworks, the genesis of it goes back to 2005, and it wasn't even a program back then. But really, the wood industry went and they took a look and they said, what are the greatest opportunities for wood frame construction? So when we look at it, single-family construction obviously is a really popular. Over 90% of single-family homes are wood frame. But what else is out there? They looked at, should we go to China? Should we, go to India? What are all, is it hardwoods? Is it softwoods? What are all the different opportunities? And when they looked at it, the biggest opportunity out there was non-residential construction in the United States. If you think about it, we've got lots of steel buildings, lots of concrete buildings out there, for our schools, for our office buildings, etc. But not a lot of wood. We've got the building codes in place, everything is set up. If we want to go to China, for example, and start doing office buildings, you'd have to spend, and there are efforts, working on that, but lots of effort to get the building codes in place, change market perception, all those types of things. So in 2007, they introduced this program. To give you a feel for it, in today's world, the people who fund us, and it's always like, who's paying the bill for things, it's primarily softwood lumber producers that are bringing lumber products into the United States. We also get some funding from the U.S. and Canadian governments. And it's really just this effort and to provide education and open up the idea of what's possible with wood frame construction. And so when we looked at this, what's the way to go to market? So most of our efforts are spent with developers, architects, and engineers. And so this is an example, if you were to look at it, the types of things we offer. And it's free design and engineering support. So basically, when somebody's like, hey, I've got an idea, maybe I should consider building something out of wood, we're here to provide support. It could be heights and areas, it could be what's the environmental impact, what about cost savings, basically whatever question you throw out at us, we've got an answer. Myself, I started with Woodworks in 2007. I know at the time, it was basically, I remember being the first employee they hired, had a laptop, and they were like, go convince people to build out of wood. So we've had a little bit of a growth since then. Got fancy PowerPoint slides and everything, so that's pretty cool. To give you just a feel for who we are, we do a lot of hosted events. Actually, we're looking at doing at least one, probably 2 events in Birmingham this year to keep reaching out. We've continued to expand. We started off in 7 states, and we're, we still haven't made it into every state, but we continue to, hit more and more of the population. The trade shows, we attend those. We do our own events. We're going to do about 130 events around the U.S. this year, plus lunch and learns going into people's offices. And then project assistance is our bread and butter. Just getting in there. We've got a regional staff and a solutions team just to provide, all sorts of different resources to make it easy. So to give you an idea of what we've done, this is last year's statistics. So there was 220 projects that we helped on that went to construction in 2015. So these are not single family, these are office buildings, large multifamily buildings, etc. We assisted on another 488 projects. So to give you a feel, we kind of in the 2 to 1 ballpark, 2.5 to 1 ballpark. Out of the projects we help on, it leads to success for us. And so those are projects that originally would have likely been built out of steel or concrete that they chose wood. There's just some other things, I don't know if we got the laser pointer, just the different events we did throughout the year. This is our staff. Our executive director is Jennifer Cover out of California. And then we've got a team that develops a lot of engineering solutions for us, people who run our events. And then we've got our field team. So these are basically a dozen people that are out there calling on the design community on a routine basis saying, hey, what about wood? And so to give you a feel for it, we've had a lot of success in multifamily construction. To give you a feel for it, actually in the last year, the concrete industry, they actually put together a $20 million program in response to what's going on. If you go to their website, they claim that they've lost 13% market share in multifamily construction to wood frame. To give you an idea of what the transformation is. There was actually the steel industry sent out a letter a week or 2 ago, and they sent it out to architects and engineers around the country, and they were basically just coming up with any bad thing they can say about the wood industry and what's going on. You should build out of steel. And the thing that I thought was really interesting is we started getting these emails from these engineers, and actually one of them, he sent us a letter that he responded back to the steel industry, and he said, so while you're sending me these emails about, why you should, why wood is bad, the wood industry sent me information on a free webinar that I can attend. So while they're educating me and helping me to build out of wood, you're sending me this propaganda. And then they also threw in, oh, by the way, I sent you an email 5 months ago asking for help and you didn't respond to that. Why don't you stop saying bad things and start helping? And if this is an engineer, you can do whatever you want. So it's pretty cool to see some of those things going on. So right now, multifamily, we've got a lot of that going on, this wood frame. But then it's really, what's coming next? Office buildings, retail, hotel, education, worship, etc. What can we do with wood framing? And it's pretty cool to see, just to give you some actual examples, and these are all things that have happened in the last 2 or 3 months. None of these have gone to construction, but we'll probably get some good chances. Had a developer down in Florida here just a month or 2 ago who's like, I built all my hotels out of concrete and masonry. And he just found us on the website doing some sort of internet search. I heard I might be able to save money building out of wood. Right now, he's working with his architect and engineer to redesign that project, out of wood frame. Another example, we did a presentation in Nashville, Tennessee. I live just outside of Nashville. Went in there and did a presentation on wood office buildings. What about building an office building out of wood? And actually, the regional director we have in that market, his name is Bruce. Afterwards, he was like, I just didn't get much out of this presentation. What's going on? And then he gets a call the next week, says, from this architect, I love the presentation, and actually I've started redesigning my building out of wood. Hey, but can you help me? I've got some questions about column layouts, how do we move this thing around? So this is another example. It's a 4-story office building that will potentially get converted. Last example coming to mind, there's actually a couple in Birmingham, Alabama. They're getting ready to open up their medical office facility, so basically one of these surgery centers, and they're looking at, they don't know anything about construction. And they're actually, what is possible? And actually they went up to Rockwood, Tennessee and looked at a mass timber building up there as inspiration, and so we're working with them to see if that could be a wood frame project. And so what does, obviously what does that mean to you? The more market there is for wood, the more trees we're going to sell, and potentially some good benefits there. And this just gives you a feel for it. You can see here multifamily construction. You can see in the brown here. There's a lot of wood frame buildings. We've been really successful in multifamily construction. These other markets, these are really the up and coming ones. And the thing I'm excited to see is that a lot more of the assistance requests are coming from those types of buildings. And this, in the market opportunity, it's about 772 million square feet. On an annual basis, about 26,000 projects to give you an idea of what's going on in the country. So if we can just grab a small piece of that, there's a lot of impact there. So one of the things for today, I was asked to talk about tall wood buildings. So I'll throw out a few questions. If you can have a little extra energy, hopefully you got some coffee, raise your hands, keep it a little bit participatory here. First of all, who here, has anybody heard of mass timber or cross-laminated timber? Very cool to see. All right, I see that. So new technologies, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the presentation. So let's say, when I say a tall wood building, okay, if I told you, hey, first of all, has anybody seen a 5-story wood building? Anybody ever seen one of those? I got one in the audience, 2. What if I told you I've got a 9-story wood building? Anybody surprised? Do you think it's possible? I got a few heads. Okay. What about 18 stories? One believer? Okay. Surprise? Maybe? Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what people are actually doing. So first of all, 5-story wood frame construction has become extremely popular in the U.S., especially when you get into the urban metro areas. One thing we're seeing, we've had some drop in single-family construction. People want to move back into the urban centers. I know, I go into Nashville pretty often. That stuff is all over the place. It's pretty cool. You can take a 5-minute drive, and I see 3 or 4 or 5-story wood frame buildings going up. And this is all allowed by the building code. It's called Type 3 construction. If you're wondering, that's how you get there. It keeps getting taller on us. Well, we see people, they're actually doing this podium construction where they'll do level of concrete, and then they'll actually have a 3-hour fire-resistant separation, and they'll do 5 stories of wood on top of that. So, this is one of those nice opportunities where we're continuing. Before, even if we only have 5 stories of wood, we can potentially get 2 stories of concrete below that. But before, if you want to do a 7-story building, it had to be steel or concrete. And so that's actually one of the recent changes in the building code to allow that. So and this is becoming very popular with what we're seeing in the U.S. And on top of that, there's actually, it's called a Tall Wood Ad Hoc Committee. And so the International Code Council right now is actually evaluating being allowed to go up to 20 stories with wood frame buildings, potentially. And so that would actually, potentially make them durability. Do you have a question, sir?
Are any of these tall wood buildings being built with southern yellow pine?
No. So the answer is, well, how tall? 5 stories?
Okay.
Yeah, that right there, absolutely. In fact, one of the great things about tall wood buildings and type 3 construction is your exterior walls need to be a fire retardant treated lumber. That's part of the building code provisions in that. And when you're talking about treated wood, southern yellow pine is the dominant species there. Okay. So if you want to take it from that angle, you basically excluded some of the other products out there. Yes, ma'am?
So I first became acquainted with this when I saw that there were buildings like this in Israel using Scandinavian techniques.
Yeah.
They don't have any forest there. Why would that not be an economic opportunity for our southern pine for them to use for their buildings?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one, as far as market opportunities, we do see, even countries that don't have a lot of, native material, there's potential cost benefits there. I'll be the first one to tell you, I am all about, the U.S. and what's going on here, so I don't get into export markets a little bit. So I'm a little, outside my expertise there. But one example where we've seen that success, for example, in some of these mass timber products, there's actually developed, this gives you an idea how things can snowball on you. So a developer, Lend-Lease in Australia, and I'll show you a couple slides on here later. They're building in Australia, they've got some land, horrible soils. And they're like, we want to build something tall, but concrete is heavy, what the heck are we going to do? Lend-Lease spent $500,000 doing research on mass timber products. And they ended up importing mass timber products from Austria just so they could build this project in Australia. But the economics, they were like, we're long-term invested in this. So the cool thing about that, so Lend-Lease, they do about $5 billion of construction in the United States. And actually the office in Nashville, Tennessee is pretty interested in this. And they do a lot of military construction. And I'll show you a slide of it. Redstone Arsenal Hotel. I believe it's a Candlewood Suites. It's been constructed with wood, and they've actually been doing blast testing on wood products. And right now they've got 5 additional hotel projects on military installations that they're looking at. 3 years ago, you had 0 wood frame hotel construction basically going on military sites. So I kind of sidestepped the questions, but there's definitely opportunities.
But I did watch some of your webinars about this, and I'm totally blown away by it. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to me what's possible. Yes, sir.
Is there any coordination between logging, milling, and then cross laminated? How do you get to the cross laminated?
Yeah, so with the cross laminated timber, the nice thing about it is we're taking dimensional lumber, maybe modified slightly, so you've got a natural base product that feeds into that really easily. And right now, and we've got that, the mills that are currently doing those products, and this is kind of, we don't have one in the South right now, but I get a phone call every 2 months about somebody who's continuing to look at this. So I would say in the next 2 years, it's going to be southern yellow pine production on this. It's just a matter of time. But some neat things that come out of it is little sidebars. So we had this cross-laminated timber product, and some of it came in from Europe, and some of it coming into Canada. Now we have 2 producers in the U.S. But then, people start going, well, what are my other options? And so there's actually another technology out there we'll get to called nail laminated timber, which you can do it with southern yellow pine today and keep moving along. In fact, there's a project at the University of Arkansas where they're looking at that as one of the potential options to make sure that local products are being used. Yes, sir?
The codes and requirements, building requirements, there's a big national, is what you're referring to. You're referring to a code, you're referring to a national application.
Yeah, the International Building Code.
Okay, now I have one other question. I haven't been to any of your webinars or
Yep.
website on it. In your opinion, what do you feel is the one primary advantage of a wood constructed building versus other materials? Just trying to,
Yeah. I mean, the easiest point I have when I'm talking to a developer, it's like, hey, you're going to be building this $5 million hotel. Typically, you're going to save around 10%. Would you like to have $500,000, in your pocket? Maybe go buy yourself a Lamborghini, whatever they cost. I don't know. But I mean, that's a pretty, compelling argument for a lot of people.
But Scott, you've already shown that you can build these buildings a lot
Yeah.
faster with fewer, inputs.
Yeah.
Details that people have to deposit. And so that, coming back to this question, is a tremendous cost saving when you potentially save a tremendous cost saving.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And that's one and this is, 5-story, we're dimensional light framing, this is 2x4s, in the 5-story, a lot of it gets into 2x6 construction, but stuff that I can go to Home Depot and pick up what I need tomorrow to build this thing. And as we start to push taller, at some point, that's where we look at alternate systems. Yes, sir, question?
Yeah, I can, don't want to put words in your mouth, but answer some of these other things. One gentleman here was suggesting advantages. One of the things that often is even overlooked by a lot of us when we hear people talk about carbon sequestration, we don't sequester carbon long term until we take that tree off the stump, prevent it from rotting. So a lot of the impetus is from the environmentally friendly carbon sequestration motive, which is we're taking timber, we're putting into building products where it's not going to rot. That carbon is now tied up. This is very, very, very flavorable to political policymakers, to environmental groups, and to anyone that would want to believe that there's a benefit in carbon sequestration. You might know, or somebody else may know this, there was to me, I forget where the source was, but the press gave the references reliable. Something like 5%, and correct me if I remember this wrong and everybody knows, something like 5% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions do not come from automobiles or power plants. Something like 5% comes from the manufacturing process to make Portland cement. So when you're actually pouring concrete, just not having anything to do with the fuel burned by the ready-mix trucks driving to site, but just the Portland cement that was mixed with aggregate in that ready-mix concrete plant, just to get that Portland cement, to manufacture that Portland cement, required that amount of carbon emissions. Does this all fit in with knowledge you have?
Yeah, and I've got a couple slides on that one. Yeah, I mean, there's some techniques out there called life cycle analysis, which is kind of the next, how do you look at the complete environmental footprint of a building? And I'll tell you, I mean, there are good things about steel. It's recyclable and other benefits. When I look at concrete, I mean, some of the initial science out there, you're looking at factors of 40 difference in the amount of water pollution, air pollution. Like, I sure am glad I'm not doing environmental messaging for concrete, is all I gotta say. Let me, so to give you a feel for, we'll keep on rolling here, because I know we gotta keep everything on time here, but keep on asking questions when you got them, we're doing good. So this is an example of what people are building. You can see here we got 2 levels of concrete, we got 5 stories of wood, plus a mezzanine up on this project. This is an example up in Seattle, Washington, but this is everywhere. 10 years ago, I could probably count on, like 20 people or less that I knew that were doing this type of construction. Now virtually every architect and engineering firm out there that does multifamily is doing this construction. You still got a few, hangers on, like we're still working on Florida, they still like some masonry and things like that. But this has just really transformed the marketplace. As far as different construction techniques, we're looking at post and beam. So your clicker there. Kind of your traditional warehouse construction, those types of things. Light frame construction, what most of you are familiar with, and this mass timber. And we'll get into that and show some pictures. So I find, it really interesting, what's possible with wood. Actually, I remember doing a presentation up in New York City, and I'd never done one there before. And I go and I ask the design community out there, like, do you think a wood frame building will last 100 years? And they all look at me, and they go, we've got 12-story wood frame buildings throughout the city, and they're all over 100 years old. So when you think about what's possible, it's like we're really just trying to figure out, what they were doing 100, 120 years ago and recapture that. This is an example of this. This building was constructed in 1906. It's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Okay? So there's the modern day photo of it. It was originally a warehouse, 9 stories, 500,000 square feet. Okay? It's an office with retail above, and they took out some of the warehouse, put in a new roof. But and so this is what's possible. And we're really just recapturing what happened in there. So if you go back pre-1900, we didn't have the national building codes, those types of things. And actually, in the 1920s, when the codes got put in, they implemented restrictions on wood frame buildings. And a lot of it had to do with, we didn't have sprinkler construction. I mean, imagine that. Things have changed a lot in the last 100 years. And, so it's like, hey, we're going to limit this just with concerns. But really, we've seen a transformation in what people are looking at. So this gives you an idea, if we just step outside the United States, what's going on. So these are just different buildings, and they were constructed, over really the last 10 years. This is all the different countries that are looking at these tall wood buildings. So if you look at it, it's just really this, people are just really getting into tall wood design. So Germany, Sweden, Austria. We got this project up in Canada, and then this is one of the newer ones, a 14-story building in Norway. And this kind of gives you the overall height of it. What's really crazy is, we got 163 feet. Some of the tallest wood structures in the world are pagodas in China that were built over 1,000 years ago. All wood construction, wood dowels, all put together, pretty cool stuff. This is an idea of what we've got going on. So this is the Forte building in Australia. So I mentioned Lend-Lease a little bit ago. So this was one of their projects that they did. Poor soils, required a much lighter structure. They completed this in 2012. 10 stories, 9 stories of it are wood in Melbourne, Australia. And like I said, they are really grabbing a hold of this and just seeing what's possible with it. You talked about carbon sequestration. So this is an example. So there's a couple things that go on when you build out of wood. First of all, is the carbon that's sequestered. So in this is the Stadhouse building in the UK. And it's kind of a cool project. It was actually when I started with Woodworks. We brought him over from England to be a presenter for us. And some of the things that you talk about. First of all, they built this structure in 27 days. That's how long it took. I guess the construction crew works like 3 days a week, so it took a little longer, but when you figure out how many days a week they're working, it's 27 days. They showed there was virtually no waste on this project. I think it was basically one broom, you get your broom and one little shovel full, and it was just where they drilled holes for electrical. It was basically where you had waste materials in there. So you've got this carbon sequestered, so this is basically 50% of your wood. If I've got a 2x4 8 foot long, 4 foot of it is got sequestered carbon in it. The rest is some other things in their water, etc. But you've also got the avoided greenhouse gas emissions, which I think is a really cool part of it. And that's this whole just comparing it to concrete. And that's the fact that I never built a concrete structure and the environmental benefits of that I did something else instead. And so and we've got some different tools on our website, but we can actually translate it. That basically it's the equivalent of if you took 1,600 cars and took them off the road for a year. That's the benefit that you get out of doing this.
Sir,
Yes, sir?
you make a sales pitch still very conservative architect. How do you address all the questions as far as maintenance, bugs, life of the structure, safety?
Yep. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll try to hit on real quick because we have, 2 or 3 hour long presentations to hit some of those things. But, so some of, first of all, the life cycle of a building, okay? Hey, let's go find some buildings that are 300 years old in America. What are they made out of? Wood. Okay? It is really interesting. Like when I did that presentation in New York City, the architects are all like, yeah, it'll last forever. I go to Atlanta, Georgia, and I ask, how long will a wood frame building last? And they're like, I don't know, like 10 minutes? I mean, how many baseball stadiums have they built in the last 3 years? I mean, man, they love dynamite in Atlanta, that's all I got to say. Yes, sir.
One of your selling points against concrete would be concrete burners. I-85 in Atlanta, I'm from Atlanta. I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get the bucket because until they get the bridge fixed, my commute is hell, so.
Yeah.
Concrete does burn.
Yeah, I mean, my father, he's retired now, but he was a bridge contractor. And I remember one day I'm talking to him, and he, I was, like, hey, what about a wood bridge, And he's like, yeah, I don't know about that. He's like, bridges are concrete. And I said, well, Dad, what does the infrastructure of America look like right now? If you do a report card on our interstates, and he's like, oh, they're all falling apart. They're horrible. And I was thinking, when did we build all these? In the 60s and 70s. Part of Eisenhower and that end of things. And it's like, so do you think a wood bridge will last 50 years? And he's like, oh yeah, a wood bridge will last 50 years. And then so even my dad, who was a little bit like, I don't know, he's like, all right, maybe you got something here. So and it is a lot of perception and, to your point, sir, and we'll get to the next question in just a second. People perceive something a certain way about how long will a building last. But, first of all, like I'll throw this one out here. If I'm building a Hampton Inn, how long is that thing going to last anyways? I hate to say it, but 75% of our buildings, basically by, I forget, it's been a little while since I looked at it, let's just say 2020, let's say 2025, whatever, we'll be conservative, are going to be, drastically remodeled or completely demolished. We love, in our society, to demolish buildings and rebuild them. And I'll tell you this one, if you really want a building to last, just make it pretty. Who's going to do, we've got these old warehouses from the late 1800s, and we don't demolish those. Why? Because we walk inside and we're like, this is a really cool building, and I would rather renovate it and turn it into something else.
Be a little bit more specific on fire.
Yep.
Buildings. When I walk into a concrete building, I don't worry about fire because in their line.
Yep.
When you get into a wood building, especially when it gets real tall.
Yep.
You're not concerned about fire.
Yep.
That's definitely
Yep.
something I'd like to take as a question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a couple of things. First of all, and let's just talk about low-rise buildings, okay? Let's talk about this building. Let's say, God forbid there was a fire in this building, okay? By the time the walls of that building are experiencing that fire, okay? What does the inside of this building look like? It's a darn mess. And everybody had better be out of this building beforehand. If you look at any of the major fires that have occurred in the U.S. and what they've changed in the building codes afterwards, it's not the structural materials, it's we got to fix our egress and those types of things. So egress, first of all, is what leads to life safety. I can go back and I can run through. In fact, I was going through and I was looking at the most drastic fires in the history of the U.S. And first of all, wood, steel, concrete, it's a pretty even mix. It's not like one's worse than the other. To your point, when you get taller, and like the Tallwood Ad Hoc Committee that's looking at this, it's about doing the right thing. Okay? So first of all, these mass timber products, wood char is about 1.5 inches per hour. So as far as keeping your structural stability in a tall building, concrete, to your point, it's got some great attributes. I am all for it. But anybody who's like saying, well, I'd rather be in a steel building, I'm like, okay, wood burns, steel melts, and actually, from what I've seen, a wood building's probably going to keep its structural stability longer than steel, just because it's going to melt. I've got pictures of blue laminated beams with steel I-beams draped over the top of them, like spaghetti noodles. That's just real, that's science right there. So, but to your point, yeah, you got to put the building together, and that's why we have codes to make sure it's done right.
Well, the World Trade Center came.
Yep. Yep, that did cross my mind in discussion. I figured I'd just kind of let that one sit. Yes, sir.
Another thing I've noticed that the more modern fires, you don't die by the flame, you die by the interior toxins of the furnishings.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just the reality that we're seeing on these things. Let me, what's the appeal? Let me, I don't know if we got the, if I can get this Turn here, we got a little video here. Oh, let's see.
What if we turn the lights down a bit so we can see the screen better?
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So this is an example of that Forte building. So sometimes, I've heard some developers like to build things quickly. Oh, we might not be able to do the video here. Let me try. Let me go back here. Oh, there you go. I just got to hit the right button. So this is the Forte building I'll show you, and this is a really cool video because they're building a concrete building, and then they're building a wood building in front of it. Okay? And so you can see here they get started. It's got one level of concrete to start with, and so they get that going. And this is using the mass timber technology, so cross-laminated timber. So it's basically lumber panels that are woven together to make 80 foot by 40 foot. Or excuse me, 10 foot by 40 foot is a pretty common size, or 8 foot by 64 foot. Those are kind of the two common panel sizes you can get. And these are actually shipped from Austria. And one of the key things is how quickly they were able to build this structure. So you can see the other building in the background, they're working on that. And so, at this point, they're kind of like if we're racing, it's a pretty close race, if you will. And then you can see actually the wood shaft tower coming into place right there, so that's the first part of it up in the front. And then you can just start to see this thing is cruising. Some of the other things that they love about this in urban infill projects, one of the biggest issues that people have is noise. Okay? I mean, if you just, I'm downtown, nobody wants to hear a darn jackhammer going or, the vibrators with concrete. This is one of the quietest job sites out there. There's another project, Brock Commons. I went out there and I talked to the construction manager, and she said that people would come over to her building and were like, hey, you're making too much noise. And it's like, no, it's not us. It's the renovation, on the building next door to us. So this just gives you an idea of, how this thing goes up. And one thing, from the, how do I feel? These are robust, solid wood. Even, when we talk to, the fire department and things like that, when they look at these buildings, they can, they intuitively know, even if they're not experts in construction, the type of, enhanced safety they have in this building and enhanced fire endurance that go along with these. So that just gives you an example of one of those structures. I'm going to grab my pointer. Thank you, sir. This is another one, Tree Apartments. Gives you an idea. So that's the 14-story building in Norway. We'll probably skip the video. I got the video. We'll skip that one. It's okay. We'll jump to some of these other things. So why are people doing this? Efficiency and speed, construction site restraints. One of them is this aesthetic. They just love the look of it. That's one of the really key drivers. We're seeing this, and we're seeing a lot of this in office buildings and other building types where people are going. And so it's buildings that historically they haven't done out of wood, as we're seeing a lot of that. Yes, sir.
How does the strength of this cross-laminated pipe compare with just regular wood?
Well, it's the same materials. We just got a lot more of it. So if you want to, keep it a very simple level, like I look at it, I can build a floor in my house with 2x8s at 16 inches on center, or I can put 2x8s at 1.5 inches on center. So in that regard, I've, whatever it is, 8 to 10 times, the strength, just because it is a solid, massive product at that point. Yes, sir.
How are the architectural schools buying into wood construction these days? I did see some architects that built a home to wood construction.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a hurdle that we have. I will say this mass timber, just the excitement it creates. You see a lot of people wanting to look at it again. An example just here recently, student housing at the University of Arkansas has historically been light gauge steel and masonry. And now they're actually looking at doing one of their first student housing projects, out of wood. So and that's the Dean of Architecture who's driving that. I've got a picture, University of Massachusetts has got a project. I can show you a couple other university projects, but that's probably going to be one of our great successes when you get these campuses where we want to see these types of buildings.
Is your group have an outreach to architectural schools yet?
No, and that's because you got so many hours in the day and so many dollars, and we're trying to get the most impact and convert buildings as quickly as possible. We would love to be doing it, But once again, when we go back to the people who fund our program, they're like, we want results today, go figure. And students are a 5-10 year investment. But we'd love to do it. Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Why do these last numbers have to come from Austria, from Europe, when we grow the wood right there in Alabama?
and no, and absolutely. And what, from my perspective, they're going to end up coming from Alabama. What's happening right now is, they've been manufacturing this stuff for over a decade. You go back to the 90s, they were doing this, and so they're a little more efficient at it right now. But we're catching up.
Is there no mills in the United States that make that particular product?
Yeah, so there's a mill in Oregon now, and there's a mill that just opened up this year in Montana. And so what it's one of these things is that, a lot of these mills, they're like, well, we want the market first, and then we'll build the mill. So it's definitely something going on. Here, I'll get to you, this was next question. Let me find a good one here. So this is, let me see if I can get a really good one here. So this is, these are kind of the different panel products that are out there and what they look like. And sir, you had a question?
Many buildings, possibly including this one, institutional public buildings are built under LEED certification.
Yep.
Does that present a challenge to you, given what LEED certification means and what once they get to wood products, or how do you overcome that?
Yeah, well, and actually, the United States Green Building Council, they finally relented, and they now recognize SFI certified wood, and so versus just FSC, and so that was a huge step in getting us in the right place. The other thing about this, what's that?
This building is LEED Platinum.
Yep. So and the other thing is, okay, like LEED Platinum, okay, you're hunting and scratching for every darn point you can get, but if you're doing silver or even gold, we're talking about 1 point. This is the part that kills me is there's a lot of emotion and a lot of fighting over 1 point in the certification program. So,
Excuse me, you've got a question over here. She's been trying
I'm
to
sorry,
get her
I missed
attention.
that one. Thank you.
I wanted to say, the new Whitney Museum in New York,
Yeah.
that's a multi-story building, they used part pound
Yep.
of floor that they'd taken out of another building and processed it and put up some padding with it. And it's so much easier on the legs,
Yep.
just walking. But they're very proud of being able to use this hard pine
Yep.
because they pointed it out to us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is, we're seeing lots of people who are, looking at this. I know, there's a number of, public projects where people are really, rethinking what's possible with that. All right, who is, yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'll get to you. I'm trying to keep up here. Yes, sir.
I have a son who's a structural engineer, I live in Alaska.
Yep.
And he's working with architects, their main concern is earthquake resistance. Now, in parts of our country where you're going to be building these tall wooden buildings, what's the advantage? Is there any advantage wood or concrete, steel, earthquake?
Yeah, so, one of the best examples I have with wood versus steel or concrete in that scenario, in the state of California, about half of their schools are wood framed, to put it in perspective, which I always get it, really? And we see some wood trusses in Alabama in schools, but there's a love affair with concrete block. And I know it's really aesthetically pleasing to everybody. But in that scenario, they actually did a survey of all the schools in California, because they were actually looking at earthquakes. We need to make sure these things are safe. And I remember I was actually going through the inventory of projects that they were going to retrofit. And I keep looking and I'm like, where are all these wood frame schools? I can't find them. I can't find them in the report. So I call up the DCS, which is, I forget what that acronym stands for, and I ask them, or GSA, sorry, why aren't there any wood frame schools? And they were like, well, we just thought those ones were already safe. So we didn't actually include them in the retrofit program. They're lightweight, a lot of redundancy, they just work during an earthquake.
I think wood would give more than concrete and steel for the truck.
Yeah.
Is that been looked at?
It does really, really well. So, yes.
I don't know if I can
Well, is anyone from Dothan here? Thank you, ma'am. Actually, this cross-laminated timber, a Canadian company is establishing its industry right in Dothan. So it's not in Acadia anymore, it's coming, and it has come to Alabama. The School of Forest and Wildlife Sciences, working with College of Architecture in Auburn, we've partnered with International Beams, which is the company which is setting up in Dothan for this cross-laminated timber. I asked our company president, why are you setting up in Dothan? The president told me that they checked in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. He thinks Dothan is the best wood basket among these 4 states. So that's the reason why they're setting up. So they put $20 million on the table, and it is going up. And we partnered with them because they needed a lot of scientific experimentation to be done for their cross-laminated timber. So we have an agreement now with the company. So it is coming up. The second piece I wanted to share is that there's a lot of discussion is going on, how best we, that is the forestry community, can partner with College of Architecture. Working with College of Architecture at Auburn, working with College of Engineering and College of Agriculture, we are launching a new 4-year degree program, bachelor's degree program in bioproducts and packaging, because packaging industry is going to be the biggest industry in a year or two, $1 trillion industry in the world. So we are trying to prepare graduates to support these 2 emerging industries. I just wanted to share that one. Thank you, Scott. Great presentation.
Thank you. And that's always one, I always try to keep my mouth shut about what people are doing, because I always get these phone calls like, 1 minute? I know, I'm trying. All right, well, let me find some good stuff here. So this is, we'll turn through it here. So this is an example. So this is nail laminated timber. This is Bolt Center in Seattle. So this is the cool thing that comes out of this. You can do this today in Alabama. There is not a code restriction. There is nothing going on. I mean, going tall, there might be some stuff you got to figure out. That'd be going beyond the code. But, I mean, you can go grab yourself some Southern Yellow Pine at 84 Lumber or whoever and make this thing work right now. This is the Redstone Arsenal project in Redstone, Alabama. So it's right in your backyard. That was Lynn Lease. That was one of the first projects they did. These are the manufacturers we've got. So there's 2 Canadian, 2 U.S. right now. Like I said, there's just more getting ready to come online. But it's, really this whole effort, it's a brand new building type that's really been evolving over the last 10 years. And, it takes a little bit of time. Let me skip through these. Some other products. This is pretty cool. Brock Commons, if you haven't seen it, there's some really nice YouTube videos. An 18-story building on the University of British Columbia campus. So, and this thing, I got the, give you some examples. Just really cool how this went together. There's an example where they're laying up the last panel of the project. And is it coming to America? Yes, this is broken ground. This is a 12-story building in Portland, Oregon that's moving forward. So we're getting there. And actually, this is one behind the scenes, Woodworks-Wood. We're working on 19 projects right now looking at this. But once again, everybody wants to covert that. And we estimate that we're probably adding about 406 million board feet of lumber by these efforts. So that's kind of, we just got done doing blast testing in Florida, and so that's making, getting us into military construction. That's what I got.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.